Hey guys, and welcome to the Animal Training Academy podcast show. I'm your host, Ryan Cartledge, and I'm really excited that you have decided to take time out of your busy schedules to come and hang out today. We're really grateful for you tuning in. And if you have been listening to the podcast for a while, we really appreciate this. Thank you so much. Hopefully you have subscribed so that you never miss an episode. But if not, or if you are new to the show, get yourself over to iTunes, Stitcher, animaltrainingacademy.com, or whatever it is you're listening to this podcast on, and hit the subscribe button to make sure you don't miss a single episode. We are bringing you today's episode on behalf of the Animal Training Academy, or ATA membership. If you like the conversations in these podcasts, then I want to invite you to continue them with like-minded people within the ATA membership area, which you can find out more about over on the ATA website. Within the membership, you can get access to twice monthly live web classes, the back catalogue of previous web classes, plus a huge library of videos and projects to problem solve different training situations. And we're a sociable bunch with an exclusive private Facebook group, forums area, and WhatsApp chat groups. It's like a Netflix social media platform for animal behaviour nerds. But we will get started on today's episode, where we will be talking to one Laurie Nanan. Laurie runs laurienanan.com, a company that offers online educational resources for dog owners and website and marketing services for rewards-based dog trainers. Laurie also works for the Academy for Dog Trainers, where she provides orientation to new students and project management for events. She's worked at an animal shelter, Women's Animal Center in Bezalem, Pennsylvania, as the Canine Behavior Education Coordinator, providing enrichment and behavior modification to shelter dogs, as well as offering training services to the public. Laurie is the founder of the non-profit Your Pitbull and You, whose tagline is "Animal learning is not breed specific," and is committed to supporting like-minded shelters and rescues. Laurie lives in New Hope, Pennsylvania, with her husband Paul, their cat Moo Moo, and Hazel, a pit bull terrier mix who has been her greatest teacher. So without further ado, it's my very great pleasure to welcome one Laurie Nanan to the show today, who is patiently waiting by. Laurie, how are you?
I'm good, Ryan. Thank you so much for having me. How are you today?
I'm doing fantastic, thank you, and it's an absolute honor to have you on the show. We share a mutual friend, Melina DiMartini, who kindly introduced us. So shout out to you, Melina. Thank you for the introduction.
Yeah.
But it's Christmas time, Laurie.
It is. I can't believe it.
This is the Animal Training Academy Christmas episode.
Yes. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.
A great time to be trimming dogs' nails with your new Christmas dog nail trimming presents.
It's never not a good time to trim dogs' nails.
Great time to set those new goals for 2019. Yes. We're going to be talking a lot about this today, which is why we brought that up. But let's go back in time now, Laurie, and move on to our first question. Can you take everyone listening back to the early parts of your journey, where you first learned about positive reinforcement animal training and some of the first animals? Share some stories from that time, some of the first animals you ever trained using it.
Sure. So I was lucky enough to get accepted into the Academy for Dog Trainers in 2011. Previously, I had worked as a dog trainer from about 2001 to 2005. I had gone to a school that had a balanced approach. And so I was a balanced trainer for that time period. And then I switched gears for a bit and worked with humans, and then found my way back to dog training. And one of my biggest jokes about going to the Academy for Dog Trainers is that I used to say that I thought I'd be perfecting my downstay. I really had no idea the depth and the breadth of information that I would learn, and that it would completely change my approach to training in every single way. part of the academy education is training behaviors on as many green dogs, meaning dogs who don't have training under their belt, as possible. And so I happened to be in a position at that point where I could foster dogs. And so I brought a few foster dogs home, and they gave me, the wonderful opportunity to test out this new way of training. Not that I didn't use positive reinforcement in the past, but I used other stuff as well. And so it was really a process of sort of opening my eyes to this, whole new approach. And it was amazing how much my knowledge kind of deepened as I went. I naively thought I knew a lot before. And I could say, compared to 2013, I naively thought I knew a lot then too. And then I was lucky enough to be able to volunteer at an animal shelter in Philadelphia. I volunteered for about 2 years at Animal Care and Control, and got to practice my skills on a lot of other dogs there before I started taking paying clients. So I had a lot of exposure to dogs that a lot of people probably wouldn't consider easy, just based on, their life circumstances. They were much more stressed than the average dog living in a home for the most part. And so it was really nice to be able to not only get my hands in there and work with those dogs, but help other volunteers kind of see that there were other ways of doing things, because not everybody there was, doing things that I'm okay with. But, people go with what they know. And so it was a really nice thing to be able to kind of start to change the culture a little bit. And so I think, thanks to the Academy for Dog Trainers, the approach that people take with shelter dogs in the Philadelphia area has changed dramatically, simply because we had this wonderful new tool to learn from that was really in depth and really, really well done, and made it easy for people to be able to start to train in a way that has to feel better for them, and is definitely lower impact on the dogs.
And so, so since getting accepted into the Academy for Dog Trainers, and you said that was in 2011, did you say?
11, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And you said you thought you knew a lot then, and then you said you thought you knew a lot in 2013, and 5 years later. How do you feel about your learning odyssey now, and kind of where you are and where you want to get to, and how far you've come, and what have been some of the biggest learning opportunities since 2011?
So the Academy is a 2-year program. So I graduated in 2013. So when I say 2011 and 2013, that's the time period I mean. And I think when it's kind of normal when you finish something, you feel sort of like on top of the world, and boy, I know a lot of stuff. And I can, fix everything. And that's not really always true. Life is more complicated than that. And so a lot of the, experiences that I had after that were really humbling in terms of, okay, so I have this knowledge, I do have these skills, but I haven't had the opportunity to practice them a ton. The only way that happens is with time. And so, recognizing that learning really doesn't ever end is an important thing. And I actually finished the academy, and I was like, oh my gosh, I have to go do this. I have to go do that. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. Get a PhD. And I just don't think that's in my future. But I did, choose to actively continue my education. I was lucky enough to do, I know they don't like it being called this, but I did chicken camp with Bob Bailey and Parveen Farhudi. And that was mighty humbling, I can tell you that. I literally went into the bathroom on the last day and cried because my chicken just didn't like me. We did not have a good relationship. And it took a lot of work to fix that. And then once I was able to achieve what I needed to with my chicken, I felt so much better about my skills. And what I took away from that was, gosh, I really do need to continue learning more. And so I try to go to as many seminars as I possibly can. Kathy Sadea was a favorite. This past year, the Academy hosted Daniel Mills from the University of Lincoln for 2 events here in the United States, and that was absolutely fascinating. I'm trying to think. I'm such a seminar geek, and I can't even think of other. Oh, Milena. I've gone to Milena's seminars a few times, and I'm like totally blanking. I always have more CEUs than I need, so I know that I go to a lot. I just can't think of what they are right now. Debbie Jacobs and her focus on fearful dogs has been really educational for me and really helpful. She's a fantastic ally for fearful dogs for both dog owners and dog trainers. And the opportunities just never end. Next year, a friend of mine is hosting Dr. Susan Friedman in, I think it's Malibu, California. I really want to go to that. There's a thing in British Columbia in July or June. I really want to go to that. So, trying to get as many learning opportunities in as I can is really important to me. There's just only so many, weeks during a year that you can get away, and only so much money that you can spend on doing it. So I try to map things out about 6 months to a year in advance if I know that they're happening, so that I can make myself be available for them.
So go and do all of the things, basically.
Yeah, there's just so many options.
I'm curious if you wouldn't mind sharing your stories from Chicken Camp and telling us a little bit about what were the series of events that led up to you going into the bathroom and taking that time you needed for yourself, and then how did you proceed from that moment?
Sure. So first of all, that's a pretty high stress environment for a lot of people. The time of the year that I went, it was also extremely hot, which made things that much more intense, I think, because it was just very hot all the time. But when you're, dogs are just a much more forgiving species than I'm used to. Chickens don't care. They just, they're chickens. They've got, they're not interested in, establishing a relationship with you. They just want the thing that's going to give them the thing. And so, that process of, being speedy with your reinforcement and getting more and more exact about what's going to get that reinforcement. Chickens are just much more likely to leave than dogs are. And when they leave, they fly off the table, and that's embarrassing. And it's just a very, you work with a partner, and that can be a wonderful thing. I had a wonderful partner, thankfully. But it can cause some stress and personality issues. And it becomes more and more exact as the week goes on, right? Because that's how good training should be executed. You start with what you can do now, what the animal can do now, and you build on that. And at the beginning of the week, I certainly couldn't do the things that I could do at the end of the week, which was fascinating and wonderful for me to see. Getting there, however, was an extremely difficult process at times. And I remember at one point, it was probably midweek when people were starting to feel like I'm never going to be able to get this chicken to peck this little target on the table. Bob Bailey kind of gathering everybody in the center of the room and saying, basically saying, like, I know that you all find this stressful. I know that you're all invested in this, and I know you all want to do well at it. But, they're starving children in Africa. Let's, kind of keep our priorities straight. This is not going to make or break anything. And that was, a good reminder, because when you're in those sort of situations that have some stakes involved in them for yourself, it's very easy to lose perspective and to start to, just kind of dial in on everything that you think you're doing wrong. And I had I had friends who had to take breaks, mental health breaks on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I kind of held it together as long as I can. And then finally on Saturday, my one chicken, we were given 2 chickens to work with. My one chicken literally did just walk right off the table. And I thought, I am just an abject failure. I'm not good at this. And it took some coaching from Parveen, who I will say is an absolutely fantastic coach. I got just wonderful feedback from her that allowed me to move forward. I was able to complete the task. And I honestly don't remember at this point. I think that it was a color discrimination task, and the chicken had to pick the green one. I can't remember. It was about 5 years ago. But the coaching was so extremely important, because otherwise we're just existing in a vacuum and trying to make stuff up as we go along. And thankfully with the right coaching chops, and somebody watching and kind of breaking things down as small as they needed to be. And I would say that I think they have to be broken down much smaller for chickens than for dogs, although sometimes we do have to break them down quite small for dogs, that I was able to be successful at it and leave that week feeling like I had, accomplished something, proven something to myself, and learned something that I could take into the rest of my training career. And really that big thing was the breaking down of criteria, that sometimes we have to break it down, so small that it seems to us like this animal should be able to do this. But it was a real reminder that we don't decide what the animal can do. The animal decides it. And I think about that all of the time. And it's one of the things that I try to impart to people is that, we may have all sorts of grand plans, but unless we've got a willing participant in those grand plans, we're not going to achieve them and we're just going to end up frustrated. So that was my big takeaway from chicken camp. And I'm extremely grateful to that hot room where I had to go into the bathroom and cry.
Yeah, that kind of forces us sometimes to push ourselves potentially. Was that one of the biggest learning opportunities you think you had since 2013?
Probably. I mean, honestly,
emotional.
Emotional for sure. Yeah, for sure. I've done a couple of other hands-on things with dogs, but I feel comfortable with dogs. I'm okay with dogs. So the other species things, like for all of you who work with other species, you have I tip my hat to you. I just think that's amazing because we get into our little comfort zones, and my comfort zone is definitely dogs. So, if you're out there working with birds all the time or in a zoo with all kinds of other species, that's just amazing to me. I think that's so cool. Dogs are much more forgiving, I think.
And so the two big things that you took away were, you said splitting criteria, and the other one was the speed of delivery. You found you had to be much faster at that.
Oh, I thought I was fast. I was not chicken fast, that's for sure.
So bring us up to speed now in 2018. What does life have you doing now?
So for about the past year, a little bit longer at this point, I've been running Nanan.com, which is an online business that I have. And we do educational courses for dog owners. And there's another portion of the business where we support dog trainers and their website and marketing, the website and marketing aspects of it, just in part because I worked with somebody when I worked at an animal shelter who happened to be really, really good at a lot of that stuff. We found that we worked really well together, and it was a really nice way for us to kind of marry the things that we both enjoy. But our courses are generally focused on dog owners. I do have one coming out at some point next year that's more targeted towards trainers based on writing skills and improving writing skills. But the courses I try to make them as user-friendly, as jargon-free as possible, with an understanding that people are only going to be successful at this thing if I make it easy for them to understand. And that includes, for me, in most of my courses, why we're doing it the way we're doing it, and then here's how to do it. So I always provide written training plans with, common splits, places where you might have to break down the criteria a little bit more, and then offering support people within the platform itself if they need further help with the breaking down of the criteria. And all of this was sort of born out of the fact that I had this dog for 13 and a half years whose nails I could not trim. I quit him when he was a puppy. And from then on, it was just a disaster. And because I didn't know what I didn't know that I was making the problem worse by, just trying to sneak up on him or try a different tool and just go right in there. I was lucky that my dog didn't distrust me completely. But there was no tricking him to getting this done. And I've always had this just tremendous sense of guilt about that because he was probably always uncomfortable. I put him in situations that were scary for him because he'd only get his nails trimmed at the vet. And I just didn't know how to do it differently. And so when I learned how to do it differently, based on having gone to the Academy for Dog Trainers, where I learned, all sorts of things about fear and all sorts of things about why dogs don't like body handling and why that particular thing might be difficult, and how to handle dogs that have body handling issues. I was able to say, okay, so here's the deal. This is I'm not going to allow this to happen with any other dog that I ever have. And that's my way of making it up to Rocco, sort of in his honor. I am sorry that I did this to you, but hopefully no other dog has to experience what you had to. And I'm so grateful to you for that. And so I wrote a blog in like 2014, 2015 that included the training plan that I used for doing my dog's nails. And it was super successful. It was crazy to me. I mean, I thought there was maybe, 20 other people in the whole world who had this issue, but I was wrong. There's lots of us. And then in the beginning of 2017, I had been filing Hazel's nails. I find that salon nail files, the thicker ones, work just fine on dogs' nails. It may take a little bit more time per session, but that's fine. If the dog's comfortable with it and it's, not a big deal to you, go ahead and do it that way. But I decided I wanted to challenge myself, and I bought a Dremel. And the Dremel sat in the box for about 2 months because I was terrified of it. And then I finally got up the nerve and started using the Dremel and basically following the same training plan, but with a little bit more conditioning to the noise and the vibration of the different tool. And I was going to just write another blog. I thought, well, I'll tell people about my experience of switching tools. And I was registered in an online course, and I found the platform very straightforward, very user-friendly. And I thought, well, let me check this out. Maybe I can make it into an online course, and then it can actually be something a little bit more beneficial. And before I knew it, I created this pretty robust online course just for people to be able to do their dog's nails. And again, I thought maybe, 50 people would sign up for it. And we're at about 700 now, which is absolutely amazing to me. And I shouldn't say it's amazing to me that people are realizing success. It's thrilling to me that people are realizing success. And I do believe it's because we've been extremely thorough in the class, in the course, on laying out the learning processes that are happening, what's happening, if your dog is afraid of having his paw or leg handled. And so there's a lot of opportunities for people to have light bulb moments about, things like fear, and that it relates to, well, dogs have software that say getting a leg trapped is not good. And I think that makes people a little bit more compassionate. I think it makes them a little bit more willing to slow down and see things from a different perspective. And then just offering lots of encouragement to keep them going. And a lot of people are successful, and it's just the most gratifying thing to me because it was the thing that I could never accomplish before and was always afraid that I wouldn't. And so I'm just, over the moon. I go into that course every day, and, there's somebody else with a picture of their dog's nails, or there's somebody else asking a really thoughtful question about how they should proceed next. And it's just so gratifying for me because I think, in my own small way, maybe that helps to change people's minds towards their dogs, how they interact with their dogs, how they treat their dogs, and starts to move us towards a future that I'm pretty sure everybody that's listening to this would like to see.
Well, first of all, congratulations.
Thank you.
On the success of what you've created. That's really wonderful to hear, and that it's helping so many dogs and so many owners and humans, and I'm sure other species as well.
Oh yeah, there's cats in there. There's cats in there, and there's actually a guinea pig.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So cool. And thanks to Rocco. Was it Rocco? Did I get that right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
For playing his part in that journey.
Yeah.
And did you say, was this your words, dogs have software that says getting a leg trapped is not good?
Yeah. So, if you think about a predator getting its leg caught in a trap, right? So if you lose a limb, probably not going to be able to hunt. You're probably also not going to be able to run from other predators. Whereas if you get a scrape or a cut on your side, you can recover from that. Losing a limb has more life or death consequences. And so because of that, dogs still have the thing that says, gosh, having my leg touched and held is like having my leg stuck in a trap. And for me, that imagery, that was a piece that Jean talks about in the Academy for Dog Trainers. And honestly, that specific example is not very big, but it really stood out for me because I thought, oh my gosh, this is why my dog is having this problem. He's terrified. And I'm sadly not sure that I had made the fear association before I heard that.
Yeah, I haven't heard that metaphor before. So to build on that, we can kind of say like your course is like hitting the update button in your Apple computer and updating to the latest operating system.
Yes. The kinder, gentler operating system.
So the software will be now saying, getting your leg trapped in this situation
is wonderful.
And so I think, the risk of asking a question that has a really obvious answer, but I want to hear it in your words, which is why I'm asking it. For the 700 people, what is the biggest challenge that they've found? And probably, once again, I appreciate the answer is probably pretty obvious and straightforward, but want to hear it in your words. What do you think? What have you learned about that might be new challenges that weren't part of your journey?
So interestingly, the biggest challenge for most people is not the dog, it's them. Because we are, and the thing is, I really try in the course to give people permission to say, like, oh gosh, yeah, I've been trying to go too fast. No wonder this is a problem. I'm going to slow down. We live in this world where, everything happens for us at the drop of a button, or the drop of a dime, at the touch of a button. We're very used to instant gratification. We generally don't like things that puzzle us, that we can't find an easy solution to. And for a long time, a lot of people will think, well, the easy solution to my dog's nail problem is to have them done at the vet, or have them done at the groomer, and I won't be in the room, or I'll clip his nails while my husband lays on him. But one of the things that I think has become really apparent to me is that people don't like those solutions. They just didn't know that there were other ones. And so now they've taken this step to say, I know that there's a different way. I hear that there's a different way. I've seen other people take a different way. I really want to be successful at that, but they still want it to happen fast. And so, and this is just not one of those things that can happen fast all the time. We have to really take it at the dog's pace. If your dog is really sensitive to having his paws held, well, you can't really start at his paws. You probably want to start up a little bit higher. And people can wrap their heads around that. They still want it to happen at a speed that works for them. And so having the ability for them to say, okay, I see that there were other people here before me and they've been able to slow down. I'm going to slow down a bit. I'm going to give myself a break. I'm going to give my dog a break. And we help them come up with, alternative solutions in the meantime, if necessary, whether it's a scratch board or going to the vet and getting a sedation visit or getting their nails done while they're getting their dental done and they're under anyway. We try to find solutions for it that are non-invasive and not going to undo the progress that they've already made. But it also helps take the pressure off of them, because I think that's the other thing too. I mean, I always felt this intense shame and guilt and pressure about Rocco's nails. But if we can take it off of them a bit, and I think that that's what the course has achieved. And I don't mean just me. I think all of the people who have come before, it allows them to achieve success in a way that's actually sustainable. So for me, the biggest challenge has not been the dogs. It's been the people, but in a good way, not in a way that, I'm like, gosh, people are such a pain. In a really good way. It's been really wonderful to watch people be thoughtful in their approach to this.
And so you think the biggest way that the course has helped communicate to owners is through seeing other people that they might relate to or resonate with getting results. And what about at the start of the course? What was kind of what other tools have you found helped you communicate to people, slow down, and it's not about speed?
I think for me, the big one was, and this is not going to be the case with every course that I do for sure, and or the same for anything that anybody does. Like, this was something that was intensely personal to me. That whole course, it's nailed it, a course in canine nail care. Like, you might as well call it Lori's Heart Lives Here. And it sounds really silly, but that whole thing is incredibly meaningful for me because, it allows me to make right something that I felt was wrong in my own life. And I have the emotional experience of having been there, and then the practical experience of having actually done it. And I think that those two things are what add up to making that course a place where people can go and know that they're not going to be judged, that other people that are there relate to them and their struggles, and that they can come and talk about their progress or their lack of progress without, they can have very little progress, but not feel like they're going to give up because they don't feel alone. So I think that course just happens to be a very special thing to me. And I think that came across when I created it. And I think that that's kind of carried through. And that's not me saying I'm great and wonderful. It's just, it came from my heart, and I think it shows. I also happen to have some knowledge and some skills, if that makes sense.
It does. And to dive a little bit deeper and to unpack Lori a little bit more, you seem like someone that can really leverage your own emotions to propel you to a higher place. So you shared your story about chicken camp. You said that this course should be named Lori's Heart Lives Here. I think there's potentially people listening to this podcast that share similar experiences. I feel very confident in saying that. We've had other podcast guests say how they've gone to their car and cried after things.
Thankfully, I'm not alone.
And I guess that's an important part of doing this podcast, right? It's an important part of the nail trim clients you get. It's that people don't feel alone. So if you are listening to this and if you have had an experience like that, you are not alone. Mm-hmm. Now, for people in those experiences, I guess there's a number of different things that can happen from that. One of them is, worst case, they might give up. Mm-hmm. One of them is they just continually keep doing the same things, expecting different results maybe. And one of them is they really push themselves to learn, to grow, and to change. So what advice can you give to people who might have found themselves in a car, who might be sitting in a car right now crying because they've just had a dog show or something? What advice can you give to these people? What helped you personally? What is it about you and the way you think and the way you tackle challenges that pushed you to go further?
Okay, well, you really might make me cry. So, my whole life has been about helping others, right? That's who I am. I'm a caretaker. I'm a helper by nature. I have a brother who has learning disabilities who's younger than me. And I think that that more than anything has really defined who I am as a person, because I've seen his struggles. I've seen people treat him poorly. I have tried to be a constant person for support and for, I just always have his back. I want him to feel safe with me. And so that has played a huge, huge role in kind of just my development as a human. And professionally, and it did feed into things that I chose professionally. So when I was in college, which was a very long time ago now, my major was psychology. And I happened to work in retail while I was in college, and I got promoted immediately after I graduated from college. And so I stuck with retail for, I guess, about 7 years or so. And then after that, I decided I wanted to go back to things that were more related to what I had gone to school for. And I had a number of positions. I worked with children who were considered emotionally disturbed, who were living in group living situations. And then in about 2002, 2003, maybe a little later, was still training and going to school part-time. I went and got a certification in drug and alcohol counseling because I did not feel at that point that I was prepared. I had been so far removed from university level learning. I was not prepared to take on a master's program. So I got a certification in drug and alcohol counseling, and that led to, I did end up going to graduate school for a few years. But my point is, so I've always been driven to help, and for a long time it was helping people. The period where I was a dog trainer, I did enjoy helping people, and sometimes I wonder why I left, and now I wonder if it's like I just wasn't comfortable with some of the things that I was told. I honestly don't remember, but when I found myself going back to dog training, so my father died rather suddenly in 2011. And my husband brought me home this book. I had to take a leave of absence from work. And he brought me home a book. It was called So You Think You Want to Be a Dog Trainer by Nicole Wilde. And he was like, I think you should read this. Maybe you might want to go back to dogs. And so I read the book. And one of the resources in the back was the Academy for Dog Trainers. But it was the San Francisco SPCA version, which had closed, but the website led me to Jean's new online version. And so I got into the Academy, and I very quickly found that I felt as if I had finally found my people. It took me a really long time to fully understand a lot of the psychological processes that we were talking about, just because, I had a steady diet of Cesar Millan and had gone to a balanced training school. But once I did, I really felt like, okay, I found my people, I found my niche. I need to find a way to make it work for me. And within the past year and a half, I've been able to do that. And so all of the, I think we all kind of go through life trying to, why am I here? What's the reason that I'm here? I feel like I found it. That doesn't mean that it's not going to change and that it's not going to evolve, but I feel like I found it. I have a core group of people that I'm close with and that I trust. I enjoy watching other people, come up through their education and get passionate. And, some people, they choose to train the way that we train simply because of the learning processes. That's fascinating. Science is fascinating. And some people do it because of the ethics, and some people do it because of both. And I feel like all of the things that I've been looking for my whole life have finally met up in this really wonderful place, right? So I have, this really great core group of people. I get to see people, changing their minds and changing the way they do things and growing and learning, whether it's, through the Academy and students or my classes and dog training and dog owners. And it fills my heart in a way that nothing else ever has. Working with people in all sorts of capacities, whether it was kids who struggled at home, adults who had issues with addiction, everything in between. I worked with people who were caught up in the legal system. I had gratifying moments in those things and people that I'll never forget from them. But it's not until this period where I feel like all of those things have come together, right? Because I still get to help people too. I'm not helping dogs. I'm not one of those people who says, well, I like dogs better than people. That's not true of me. I do feel like all of the things that are important to me have come together in this really sweet spot. It's not super sweet every day. Some days are hard. That's just life. But in this super sweet spot that allows me to do the things that matter most to me. And that is just, the most wonderful thing in the world. So, if people are not sure what that looks like or what that's going to look like, right? They know I'm not quite happy here, but I like this about it. I like that about it. There is a sweet spot. And if you keep trying to find it, you will get there. I'm probably much older than you think I am. And I got there. It's completely possible. And it's a wonderful thing. And it's all because of all of those previous experiences.
Well, thank you for sharing.
Thanks.
Thanks for sharing about your brother.
He's my best friend.
I imagine there was challenging times as well as a lot of obviously happy times. Sorry about your father. Lost my father too, so I appreciate.
That's a tough one.
I've never heard someone phrase it like they've had a steady diet of sesame alarm before. So.
I didn't really feel good about saying that, but it was true.
Yeah, and then it's given you that insight into that other side of the Force with you Star Wars terminology. But I like that part where your partner gave you that book. So you think you want to be a dog trainer, and you know, I like that because we call them ripples at Animal Training Academy. That one small thing that probably doesn't seem very meaningful at the time, but it's a small hinge that swing big doors. How important do you think that little ripple was at that moment? Like, did it set in motion a tsunami, or was it?
Kind of. I mean, I kind of gobbled the book up. I knew that I couldn't go back to what I was doing. I was that was just a very tumultuous time, and I was working with women with children who are transitioning from homelessness to permanent housing. And as you can imagine, that comes with, lots of hitches and glitches, and, some of them are bureaucratic, some of them are human. But it was hard on me, and some of that was bureaucratic and some of that was human. And my father's death that in itself started a lot of ripples. And then the book, his timing was just perfect. I was sitting out on our front porch. We had these lounge chairs at the time. We had 2 dogs, and I had the two dogs were sort of like nestled in between my legs, laying down. And he walked in the front gate and he said, "I bought you this book today." And it was just, the timing was perfect. Like I had enough of a period of calm where I could start to think about what's next. And I did. I gobbled that book up. I gobbled the resources up in the back. And whenever people ask, like, I've lent my copy to more people than I can, say. And honestly, I haven't touched it probably since 2011, so I don't really know what's in it. But I trust that it's good enough that if somebody's interested in, pursuing this as a field, there's enough information in there to kind of allow you to weigh the pros and cons. But yeah, and I lend that book. I don't give it away because it really was a game changer for me.
So go forth and spread ripples, everyone. Sometimes you don't know that little thing that you do to help someone.
It's true. I'll have to give my husband a big hug and a kiss when he gets home. Thanks for reminding me of that moment.
Think about all of the dogs that now have flowed from that, and then all of the people that these other people are helping to support, and the ripples are huge.
Yeah, they really are. They are.
Hey, let's go back to our trimming dogs' nails conversation, because we decided that we were going to come up with 5 tips that you could offer the listeners of this show. 5 tips to trimming your dog's nails. What might the 5 biggest things be in your personal opinion?
So one of the things that I've noticed over time, and I had seen it before, and I try to pay attention to it, is that often people want to do their dog's nails using operant conditioning processes. Give me your paw, I clip, you get a treat. And one of the things that I've seen over time is that for a lot of dogs, that's actually very expensive. And so they'll comply for a while because dogs are, generally just good sports, and they go along with us because, we come with food. But over time, it just becomes too much to ask of them. They really aren't comfortable with it. And so suddenly they are not so compliant, and people are, sort of left kind of scratching their heads. And by the way, this is, amongst dog owners and dog trainers, there's a pretty good amount of dog trainers in the force too. And I should say veterinarians, because there's quite a few veterinarians. And so the course is designed using classical conditioning. And so, and then in some cases, for some dogs, it's counter conditioning because we're starting from negative and we have to kind of rebuild. But I did that because because my experience showed me that there were a lot of people that were really, stymied as to why they stopped being able to do their dog's nails. And I wanted people to, I kind of wanted to build in these additional lessons about, body handling and why that can be uncomfortable for dogs and why it's important to take things at the dog's pace and how that's a more sustainable way to be successful at this. And what I've seen is what I thought I would see, is that more people are able to be successful. It does seem to be more sustainable for a lot of dogs than asking for a paw and clipping and then giving a treat. Although when you get to the end of the process, it does look a lot like operant conditioning. It just is not built that way. And then the last thing I would say, I think that was 4, is that things like nail trimming don't have to be a battle. They don't have to be a thing that we do to dogs. These things, from toothbrushing, we'll have a course coming out on toothbrushing in February. Toothbrushing, ear cleaning, bathing, any type of paw and foot handling, tail lifting, brushing, all of those things are things that we can do with our dogs. They don't have to be things that we do to our dogs. And that one of my big hopes is that people kind of see in the course that what I'm saying is they could easily, go from, oh, she's talking about pus, but I guess I'd be willing to bet that I could use the same processes for, lifting my dog's tail to, clean it if I've got a long-haired dog who tends to attract muck back there, or to wipe off his muddy paws, or to clean his ears. And, I think that anytime we can provide people with those light bulb moments to get them thinking about, well, I bet I can, try other things that are related with my dog and have those things go more smoothly. It's a really nice opportunity to do so. So I think if we can, sort of make people slow down a bit, realize that this doesn't have to be a fight. We can actually make it enjoyable for both of us, and feel good about it. That's the other thing. We can feel really good about it. I mean, I felt really bad about taking Rocco to the vet and letting, 3 techs, my husband and the vet, do his nails while I left the room. I felt really, really bad about that. I want people to feel really good about this. So that would be, I believe those are my 5 tips. I think that's all 5.
So we've got 1, really pay attention to your dog's body language. Mm-hmm. 2, if your dog has a history with a particular tool, then don't be scared of changing tools. Mm-hmm. Number 3, use some high-valued, yummy or ancestral or other reinforcements that's high-valued. 4 is your offerings are based primarily on building on classical conditioning. Mm-hmm. And number 5, that doesn't have to be a battle. And enjoy the process, have fun.
Yeah.
Both you and your dog.
I think that seems impossible before you get started, but it's not. It's possible for most people and most dogs.
Can you run us through 4 a little bit more and say why this is so important, do you think, and kind of what strategy the course offers people with regards to using classical conditioning to maybe, let's say, get used to a pair of nail clippers? Ooh.
Yeah. So here's what's interesting. When I was going through the academy, I remember, I think it was in a webinar, Jean said, there's going to be some people here who are operant conditioning bias, and there's going to be some who are classical conditioning bias. Some people tend to not like classical conditioning because they're like, oh, that takes too long. I don't have that sort of patience. And I was like, yep, that's me. And now I find myself very classical conditioning biased. I like the building of a positive response to things where there wasn't one before. I think probably what I like about me is that it does slow me down and it makes me think a little bit more and it makes me observe a little bit more. And so for things like, nail trimming or other things that dogs are afraid of, it's also maybe a little bit more rewarding for me. I don't know that that's true. But I think that the the ability to take a being from being afraid of something or not liking something and having them have this really positive emotional response to it because we worked hard at it and we did it in a way that, didn't force them to feel uncomfortable, didn't, we didn't flood them. I find that extremely rewarding. And I guess maybe nails is just a little microcosm of that. And I honestly think that as human caretakers, we probably could do a little bit more of that with dogs. Thankfully, dogs are, just these, amazingly resilient beings who go along with so much of what we just kind of do. But if we can, and in a lot of cases we can change their responses to things. We can make them more comfortable things in ways that don't cause them to, that don't cause them pain, that, we're not scaring them, we're not shocking them, we're not doing these horrible things to them. We're actually like really making them feel good about things. That, like, what more do you want out of life than to make other beings feel good about things? I just think that's so wonderful. And it's so amazing to see it happen. And the longer I've been training, I mean, maybe it's because I just kind of try to tune out a lot of the other stuff, but the longer I'm in training, I feel like the more I see dog owners grasping it. Maybe it's we're getting better at getting the information out there. And maybe it's because of people like Debbie Jacobs who, focus on fear. But being able to make positive responses in an animal who was previously afraid of something, in a way that is humane, safe, effective, ethical, all of that. And we're making sure that, our order of events is right. And we've got, 1-to-1 ratios, and we're not going over threshold, and we're only moving forward, but we see that the dog is clearly comfortable. All of those things cause us to slow down. They cause us to think. They cause us to be better sort of, maneuverers. And I think that when people see that in action, it's just gotta feel better than, 3 techs and my husband on the dog while the vet clips the nails. Like it's just got to. And I feel like the longer I'm training, the more I see it. And it could be because of my bias. I tune out a lot of stuff. I do exist in a little bit of a bubble. But there are more and more people who are able to do these things because maybe there's less people like me who went to a balance school first. I don't know. But I think that is, the one aspect of being an animal trainer that is, it's just extremely rewarding to me to see something that an animal struggled with and a person struggled with, right? Because if you live with a dog, you're going to struggle with the same things, in your human way. It's going to cause you stress and strain and worry. To see people overcome those hurdles, it's just awesome. It's awesome. Again, that was more from the heart than scientific. So that just kind of gives you, that's just who I am. The science stuff is in there, but it's just always more about what speaks to me, I guess.
I think it's going to speak to the podcast audience as well.
Oh, good. Okay.
I like how you said there you became a better, and I'm going to fucking tongue-tied on this word right now, better maneuverer.
Oh, uh-huh.
Our goal is to become better maneuverers.
Maneuverers. I probably made that word up. It's probably not even a word.
That's a word, right? Maneuvering.
Yeah, you maneuver. You're maneuvering around things. I don't know if you can actually be a maneuverer.
Can now.
You heard it here first.
The Animal Training Academy podcast show, making up English words since 2018. I like that, though. We want to become better maneuverers.
Yeah, I actually feel like, people who train the way that we do are really good at observing. We're really good at, kind of seeing 5 steps ahead and adjusting ourselves before we get there then. That's what I mean by maneuverer, right? Like you've just got to be kind of swift and on your feet and able to predict what's you can see going to come down the pike and get ahead of it. There's your definition for maneuverer.
Well, I'm envisioning like an extreme downhill skier. I don't know why, because I don't do that and I have nothing to do with it. But like, to be successful, you've got to know like exactly the right moves to make at the right time. Yep. Otherwise, you're gonna just hit yourself real bad.
Yeah, you're gonna slam right into that rock or whatever it is that they put in those things.
I like that. I like that a lot. Awesome. Thank you so much for all of that. We've got one more question before we wrap up today, and this is one that I really enjoy hearing about, and potentially you just answered it to some degree. But that is, what do you really want to see happen moving forward? We started off way back when you first started. We've talked about your experiences with your brother today, so we've really gone back to the early part of your personal journey.
It's like a therapy session.
let's move forward now, though. Let's look into the future. Let's put our future glasses on. What do you want to see happen? What, from your experience, from everything you've learned, from where you are in 2018, what does the next 5 to 10 years have in store for us in this community, for us trimming dogs' nails and brushing dogs' teeth and all of us feeling good stuff? What's next?
I would like to see a continuation of those sort of things. I really, I think that less low stress, fear-free, cooperative care, veterinary movement is growing, and I would like to see that continue to grow. And I think it will. I think that we're making real progress there on how our companion animals are treated when they get medical care. I would really like to see some tightening up of credentialing in dog training. I think that, it's been the Wild West for a very long time. I don't think it's going to stop being the Wild West for a long time, but I would like to see some more, regulation and transparency in terms of, what I'm selling sounds like what I'm selling and not like, something that I am just making up to make it sound good. And I'd also really like to see, so one of the things that I think is really cool, and it's definitely one of the things, and maybe this is true for you as well, technology allows us to reach more people than ever. So I would like to see, I'm very excited to see where technology allows us to go next. I'm sitting here in New Hope, Pennsylvania, just north of Philadelphia, with you in New Zealand. That's amazing. We're, having a live discussion on our computers on a Monday afternoon or Tuesday morning for you. And so the repercussions of that is that we have the ability to, talk to each other in real time, get information to people who might want to hear it, the time that is convenient to them. And I think that, there's lots of people who are doing online courses. I think that things like online courses are beneficial, not because my least goal is to take business away from trainers. My greater goal is to reach people that don't have access to trainers. And there's lots of them. The world is very, very big. So I would like to see, I'm excited to see how this continues to grow, how we're able to reach more people. And I will say, I do think, I do quite a bit of research. I do think that as positive trainers, we're kind of ahead of the game. Traditional trainers aren't as, that's not to say bigger organizations, but by and large, they're not as, or in my research anyway, they're not as hip to the many resources that can be provided to people technologically is what I see. Again, I have a bias. I live in a bubble. So I'm really excited to see that. I think that there's a great future beyond, the free YouTube video that the trainer makes. I would like to see trainers making sustainable livings and not always, giving away things for free is great. I do it all the time, but being able to make a living, because that's how you're going to stay in the game. And so I would like for people to see, new ways for people to reach people that sustains them financially, emotionally in their career, and not get burned out. I think that there's lots of opportunity provided by technology that way. So I'm excited to see that. There's a lot of things that I'm excited about now that I think about it. I do feel like we're headed as an industry, as trainers, in the right direction in terms of getting people to interact with their animals and treat their animals in a way that we consider to be more humane.
So coming in 2019, the paid Animal Training Academy podcast show.
Right. No. I make little videos for shelters and handouts for people all the time. And I have free videos but I feel like trainers are made to feel bad about the fact that they make money. I think people do it to vets too, right? But you love animals. And it's like, well, yeah, but I have some of my own that I have to feed, and I like food too. I also like a roof over my head. So I think that there's some pressure on us sometimes to provide things simply because we love animals. And I like to provide things just because I like to provide things. I happen to love animals, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I feel that. We haven't really talked about that before, but haven't really thought about it too deeply. So now I'm not going to stop thinking about that.
Sorry.
No,
sorry.
Don't apologize. That's awesome. Hey, thank you so much for sharing that vision of the future. You're talking to the future right now. It is Tuesday morning here in New Zealand. It's only Monday over there.
That's amazing. Technology's so cool, isn't it?
And so hopefully we are all going to be working hard to build on that future, and I know it resonates a lot of what other people have said in their answers there, as well as provided some unique and new perspectives as well. So I really appreciate that. Just before we do wrap up, do you want to tell everyone listening where they can go to find out more, find your courses, and get in touch?
Absolutely. So my website is called LoriNanan.com. It's LoriNanan.com. And you can find all of the courses there listed under education. The course that kind of brought us together is called Nailed It, a course in canine nail care. And if it's okay with you, Ryan, I will set up a discount code for people who listen to the podcast to be able to get the course at a bit of a discount. I'll simply make the code ATA, and the discount will be 25% if that works for you.
You nailed it. Perfect.
Very punny.
Hey, Laurie, thank you so much for, and I love saying it. Now that I know, now that I've heard you spell out your last name, like I just really want to do it.
I feel like there's going to be like at least two people who listen to this who have a moment where they go, oh, that's how you say it. Because everybody that I know says it wrong.
I don't want to sing it. N-A-N-A-N. I won't say it as I've already done it.
Yes, I do it. When I type sometimes, I just keep going. It's like na-na-na-na-na.
There's some people's names I love saying. Past podcast guest Bianca Papadopoulos. Good friend of mine as well.
Papadopoulos. I can't even say it. That's a good name.
I still can't spell that. Sorry, Bianca. That's right. I'm getting better. Hey, we will wrap up there. Laurie, thank you so much for making time to come and hang out with us here at Animal Training Academy today, for catching up with me about a month ago and chatting through what you wanted this episode to look like, and for sending emails back and forth and for all of the things. We really appreciate you taking the time. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ryan. I've loved being here.
Wonderful. And everyone listening, we, of course, really appreciate you tuning in today as well. If you have enjoyed this episode and you were interested in carrying on the conversation about working with our dogs and our animals in the most positive, funnest, choice rich ways, then as mentioned at the start of this episode, the ATA Animal Training Academy community is waiting for you. Head on over to www.animaltrainingacademy.com, click on the membership button in the main menu to learn more about what members are describing as the Netflix social media platform for behavior nerds. There is something there for absolutely everyone. We're looking forward to having you join the tribe. That's it for this episode, though. We will officially wrap it up there. Thanks again so much for listening. You'll hear from us again soon.